Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Mo Money Podcast. This is season 9 of the show. I am so excited to be back. Had a lovely summer break. I hope you have too, and you're excited to get back into the swing of things, get back to learning about personal finance, because I've got one heck of a season for you, and I can't wait to share it with you. So before I dive into all this good stuff, I want to give you, a little little update on what I've been up to since, episode 204 when I, signed off for this summer. So, as I mentioned, went on a little vacation to Hawaii. That was lovely. Went back home to Vancouver to visit family. Became an aunt because my older sister had her baby, which is so exciting. And I'm just like so in love with my niece. And then came back home and started just grinding it out on some really cool projects. If you've been following me on social media, which I highly recommend that you do, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on everywhere pretty much. But I have been doing a ton of kind of free events in this city. I was able to fulfill a really, one of my dreams since really starting this podcast, I guess, which was to speak in my own solo session at FinCon, which I mentioned a ton on the show. It's the big personal finance content creator conference based out of the States. And so that was really, really cool. I'll be sharing, I think, the next episode next week. If you want to see what my session was, because everything's recorded, and also every session that occurred at FinCon, you can actually buy a virtual pass, which is very cool. So I'll share more about that next week when I have more information about it. What else I've been up to? Oh yeah, I have been very busy on my YouTube channel. So I've always wanted to make more videos. I personally believe that it is kind of like podcasts. I 4 years ago, I'm like, I think podcasting is going to be big, and got into that pretty early, which is awesome. I feel like YouTube, when it comes to personal finance content, that will be kind of the next space that people will start kind of gravitating towards. I mean, I honestly have been just binging YouTube. I learned how to do contour. I've been watching every different type of YouTube channel out there just to kind of learn more. And also I'm obsessed, and now I'm just always watching YouTube. So check out my YouTube channel, jessicamorehouse.com/YouTube will take you right there. Subscribe. I am putting out a ton of videos weekly on pretty much every kind of topic I think you would be interested in learning about. So they're kind of bite-sized. They're, 10 minutes and go into a specific topic, like what are credit scores all about and all that kind of stuff. So a little bit more informational than say this podcast, where it's very long form interview with a expert or a special guest. So make sure to check out my YouTube channel, because I'm trying really hard to just make that happen. And it's also freaking a lot of fun. Also, finally, I have a reason for having this damn film degree. Am I right? Okay. So that's kind of a quick little what I've been up to these past few months. I'm so excited to be back. Also, very cool announcement, and I'm almost shocked that this is something I can share publicly now. I finally took some time to tally all of the downloads of this show since inception back in June 2015. And I have not only hit the 1 million downloads mark, I'm above that. 1.1 million downloads thanks to you, my favorite, amazing friend, listener of the podcast. So I just want to say thank you so much for supporting me and this show. Without your support, well, I wouldn't be doing it, and I probably wouldn't be getting as many amazing guests as I have been and will be able to share in the coming episodes. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Now, for this episode, kicking off the season, I know you're going to love it because, well, number one, it was the first video. Oh my gosh, YouTube's on the brain clearly. First podcast episode I've done in a while where I actually had the guest come over to my house in the studio, really just my living room. And we got to chat because he's based out of Toronto. He's a friend of mine. His name is Matthew Siwiec. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name the right way. Should have asked him. Sorry, Matthew. And I had him come over I've known him for years. He is a financial coach, but actually he, now I feel like I'm allowed to say, I think I'm allowed to say this, that he's a certified financial planner. There's a bunch of minutia that goes into that, which we go into in this episode, but he's a CFP financial planner. He works with clients one-on-one, and we've been talking for a while. We should do an episode together to really go in depth about all the different kind of financial designations in Canada. And also, if you are looking to work with a financial professional, what to look out for. Because, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe how many emails or tweets or messages I get from people asking me, hey, who should I work with if I want to get help? There's so many different people calling themselves money coaches or financial planners or financial advisors. It's very confusing. They all mean different things. And personally for me, I don't, if you can't work with me, because also like right now I have a wait list. So I always like to refer out to people that I know are, respected and credible, but it's very complicated to find someone good that you can trust, because there's a lot of people that you shouldn't work with and you should not trust. So that is kind of the theme, the topic for this episode. So I think you're going to get a ton out of it. So before I get to this wonderful interview to kick off season 9 of the Mo Money podcast, I just want to say a few words about this episode's sponsor. This episode of the Mo Money podcast is supported by the Great Courses Plus. I think we can all agree that the best investment we can all make is in ourselves. If we want to grow, improve, and reach whatever goals we set ourselves, we need to learn new skills, and we need to continue our education on our own time. I know for a fact that if I didn't push myself to keep learning after university, I definitely wouldn't be where I'm at right now in my life and in my career. If you're ready to take action, the Great Courses Plus is a convenient and affordable way to do it. The Great Courses Plus gives you unlimited access to in-depth, reliable information across thousands of topics, such as understanding investments, improving your photography skills, exploring the cosmos, and so much more. Not only that, these courses are all presented by renowned and respected experts. I'm talking instructors with PhDs here, people who are not only knowledgeable, but also skilled at communicating big ideas. Plus, you can watch or listen entirely on your own schedule from anywhere. One of my recent favorite courses is called The Art of Negotiating the Best Deal, which goes into effective techniques and strategies to negotiate personally and professionally. If you want to check out what the Great Courses Plus has to offer, well, right now they are offering all Mo Money podcast listeners a free month of unlimited access to their entire library. Just visit thegreatcoursesplus.com/Mo Money to get access. Once again, that's thegreatcoursesplus.com/Mo Money to get one free month. Welcome, Matthew, to the Mo Money podcast. So excited to have you in studio.
Thank you for having me, Jessica.
We've been talking we've known each other for a while. But I feel like every time we do chat, just hanging out, it's really about kind of one topic that we always like to talk about, which is designations in Canada.
Yes.
And I've never done an episode on this. And I get a lot of questions from either people, reaching out to me being like, I think I want to become a money coach or a financial planner. What are the routes to take, or just people asking, I want to work with someone, but how do I know if they're legitimate or they do actually have credentials? Like, what do I look for? I think there's a lot of confusion about different types of designations. A lot of people give themselves their own titles. And also then there's like Canada versus the US, because we have very different rules. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm having you on the show, so we can get into the nitty gritty, so people after this episode will know exactly what they should look out for in terms of if they want to pursue a designation or if they want to hire someone.
Perfect. Sounds good.
And so let's first start off with a little bit of your background, because you've been in the financial space for a while.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Too long.
Too long. Yeah, so it's been over 15 years where I've been in the financial industry.
Wow. Yeah, that's double what I've been. Like, I'd say, yeah, it's a while. So what brought you into this sphere? Do you always like finance?
Yeah, so I always was interested in economics and stuff like that in high school. And then I just kind of stumbled into the banking world. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, becoming a teller seemed like a pretty cool idea. Right?
I know, actually.
And everyone else was like doing retail and stuff like that. So someone essentially, gave me an opportunity, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. Mm-hmm. And then I've kind of just been, rolling in that industry for a while, and been kind of finding my niche over the years.
So you worked for a bank for a few years.
Yeah.
And then you decided to leave that and do your own thing.
Yeah, so I actually worked for a few different banks.
Okay.
And I was there. I worked in the commercial, or I guess the retail banking sector for probably about 10 years in total.
Oh, that's a few years, like a decade.
Yeah, it just flies by though. I can tell you that. And so I started as a teller, and then I worked as a senior financial representative, which is essentially like a retail advisor.
Yeah.
And I left that industry because I was unhappy with the sales practices that were being implemented. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the listeners have read about or heard about stories, or unfortunately even dealt with it themselves. But, over time, I just wasn't, happy doing that. So I decided to, kind of go on my own and offer unbiased guidance.
So basically you were tired of having to push certain products when you're like, I actually just want to advise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That is the whole problem with the banks.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Which makes sense. And that is why me and a bunch of other, personal finance voices out there are very much like, if you want to get advice or if you want to get help, you should find someone who's fee only, who is not affiliated with a financial institution. If you want that unbiased information, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you decide to make the leap to work for yourself as a financial planner. What were the steps? Because I know this is how we're going to kind of talk about designations. Did you know, okay, I guess that means I'm going to pursue the CFP, or did you consider other designations?
Yeah. So it was a very big, I had quite a few different routes that I was contemplating taking.
Okay, what were those routes you were thinking
So
about?
I mean, one of them was taking a master's in finance or economics.
Oh, yeah.
And also I was thinking about doing CFA.
Right, the
and also,
Chartered Financial Analyst?
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
yeah. And CFP. So I was at a point where I wasn't really too sure which road I wanted to take. And, over time I, kind of decided which one was most applicable to me. And I guess we'll talk more about that later. But one of the most important things that, must be considered before going upon one of these routes is, what benefits you in the best way possible. Yeah.
Now, just talking a little bit more about, we mentioned CFA and CFP. CFP, just we're going to mention that a while. It means Certified Financial Planner. Why were you looking at the CFA, and what exactly is that?
Yeah, so Certified Financial Analyst, I would say a bit of it's a more rigorous course,
right?
But
I hear it's really tough.
Yeah,
actually.
I would say it's probably one of the hardest of all the qualifications.
Yeah,
if not the hardest.
Yeah,
and that is more for, I would say, more for back end type of like analyst work.
Right.
So if you want to become like someone that manages some sort of a portfolio or something, that would be a step to get to that route. While, certified financial planner would be more, I would say, more face-to-face contacting, dealing with individuals directly.
Absolutely. Okay. So we know that you decided CFP was the right route for you. So much has changed in the past year or two.
Yes.
It's honestly hard for me to even kind of keep up. So what were the steps when you decide this is the route I want to take? What were the steps in order to get that designation? Because there's so many different routes, and it's not, it's very confusing in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very confusing. And you'll find with all the qualifications, the pathways can be a little bit convoluted.
Yeah.
And it's, it takes a lot of time and effort just to understand, the various different paths that are out there. But for myself, particularly, I actually started taking the first course about 15 years ago. So I actually started it when I was still in school. And that was the Canadian Securities course.
Yep.
And that's kind of, deemed to be like an entry-level financial course. Obviously very complicated, but it's usually the first step that's taken. So that's actually the first course that also needs to be taken for many of the CFP paths.
Yeah.
And after that, you had to take a couple other courses. So there were 2 other ones that you needed to take. All of those courses would have exams as well attached to them. And then once you're done those courses, you're then eligible to take the first level exam, which is the FPSC level 1 qualification. And that exam is a 4-hour intensive exam.
Ew.
Yeah,
No.
It was pretty gross.
Yeah.
And most people that I spoke to after the exam actually didn't even finish it.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
How many questions?
I think it was 100.
Yeah, but
100.
just probably not just multiple choice kind of thing.
Those ones were all multiple choice.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, but it's the kind of thing where it's not like where there are obvious.
Right.
Yeah, it's basically picking the one that's the best answer.
Oh, I hate that.
It was bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when I left it, I felt like I had left a whirlwind.
And you're like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah. You're like, there's a world outside of here.
Yeah, 4-hour exam. That's been a while since I've done anything like that. So it sounds like you studied hard and you passed.
Yeah, I passed that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's not, you finish all of that. How long did that take you actually to get to that level?
Yeah, so I mean, once I decided that I wanted to take that pathway, it was 2 years to get to that
Wow.
exam, and of course I had done the CSC course beforehand,
Yeah.
so that path would have probably been 3 years for someone that hadn't taken it. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's just the first level.
That's just the first level. And so level 2, what did that look like?
Oh,
Yeah. Harder.
So what you then had to do after you passed the exam is you had to do a capstone course, and a capstone course is actually it's a written response.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're given case studies that you have to write full case study responses to. So there are multiple different ones that you need to do. And it essentially climaxes and you have to write like a 40-page financial plan for a case.
Oh, 40 pages.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on in that financial plan? That sounds that's a novel, a novella.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Wow.
So that was definitely time consuming, and you had to, include all the math and stuff like
Yeah.
that in the appendix. So that was fun. And as we were talking about before, right after I finished, or just before I finished it, I found out the CFP path changed.
Yeah.
So now it's actually different for everyone that wants to take it.
So starting in 2020, totally no rules, new rules rather. Yeah. So that's super fun, which is why I have not pursued any of the, because I'm like, I always kind of just once in a while look into it. There's a couple different routes you can take in order to get to the level 1 and then the level 2. And then I read that the rules were changing in 2020. I'm like, then I'm not going to bother to look at this until 2020 so I can firmly understand what the hell these rules are. It's just really, not hard. So I know one of the changes they're also making too is, I think as of 2020, you need to have a bachelor's degree in order to pursue this.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have some feelings about that. I've been seeing online. They're like, well, that's not fair and all this stuff. And it's true. My film degree has nothing to do with me becoming a good financial planner. But I don't know. Why do you think that they're changing that? Why do you think they made that rule?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been out of complaints,
right?
Or maybe they're concerned with maybe the pass rate for the exam.
Oh,
so that may be something to help filter people out. So, they don't struggle further on. You don't waste a year or two until you realize that it's not the right thing for you. But it could also just be, protectionism, right? So I know that, in our industry, they're very protective of titles.
Yeah.
So that could be something as well to, to kind of, prevent the inflow of individuals that have qualification.
No, that's true. And that's one thing about the CFP, which is why I've always kind of flirted with the idea of pursuing it, is because it is the most kind of world-renowned designation in terms of financial planning. In the US they have that designation. It is kind of worldwide, and so when someone has that designation, you take them seriously. You're like, oh, okay, you worked really hard to get that. You probably know what you're talking about. And usually when I am kind of recommending out people, depending on what they're looking for, I usually make sure they have a CFP or at least the level 1 designation or something like that. But there's a couple other designations out there that have been around for a little bit, but I think also people don't know a ton of them. So I kind of want to ask you some questions if you know any of them. So one of them that I feel like has only been around for a few years because they started promoting it, I feel like, in the subway. I'm like, what is that? Is the Canadian Securities Institute have this one called Personal Financial Planner. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah. It's actually been around for a little bit.
It's been around
longer.
for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. It was something that I never really knew about, but then, just a few years then I kind of learned about. It sounds very similar to a CFP, PFP, but it is not the same. Have you come across it? Was that one of the things that you thought, maybe I'll look into getting that myself, or no?
I did, yeah. So I did look at taking it, and actually the pathway that I took, a lot of the course, a lot of them were actually through CSI, the Canadian Security Institute. That's one of the major educational bodies where they provide these courses, and a lot of the courses that I took are actually are the same path to get that designation. But I mean, I kind of figured that if I'm taking that path, I may as well go for the CFP.
So with the PFP and CFP can you do both? Is there any benefits or drawbacks to doing both? Because I am sometimes one of those people that fantasize of just like collecting a bunch of designations. Because for so many years, people were like, "Why should we listen to you?" I'm like, "Because I've got all the designations." But that's just ridiculous. But anyways, can you do both? And should I? No, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, technically you can, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't really recommend it
because I haven't seen many people with both. There's probably a reason for that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, well, I guess we'll talk a little bit more about it later on. But once you have a certification or designation, there are certain continuing educational requirements you have to make.
Yeah.
So, like for my course, the CFP, you have to do 25 hours of continuing education every single year, right?
Yeah.
And you would have to do continuing education with the other. Like with the other designation as well. So that amount of time would be quite a commitment. And also with all of those qualifications, you typically have to pay annual fees as well.
Right.
And the benefits that you get out of having, multiple acronyms beside your name, it may not fully make it valuable enough to do it.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. And even for the designation that I have, Accredited Financial Counselor Canada, there's continuing education credits and then also an annual fee. So if you kind of keep on getting designations, it can be a lot of money and also a lot of time. And I'm not sure if very well you could do a bunch of continuing education and be like, oh, this counts for this designation and this one. I don't know. They may have some specific rules being like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, they may not allow it. It's very specific.
Yeah, exactly. So for the PFP, I will say in my personal opinion, like when I've done research, I'm like, because I like did one course through the CSI. It was like financial services advice. It was like the first financial course I took. I don't know why I chose that one. It was definitely for like bankers, but it was actually quite interesting. I'm currently enrolled in the Canadian Securities Institute. And then I'm like, then I just need 2 other courses and then get this PFP designation. But then as I've been doing research and talking to people, no one really knows that one, especially when you compare it to a CFP. A CFP is way more, I think, has a little bit more weight to it. And also it seems like the only people that really have the PFP are bankers, like people that work for financial institutions. So I'm like, that's something else to kind of think about. It's like, do, a lot of fee-only planners have a PFP? If not, then maybe that's something that you should think about. It's like you kind of got to consider what are other successful financial planners doing? Like what kind of route did they do? Yeah. So, but I mean, if you want to do a PFP, go crazy, go ahead. But I don't know too many people with it. I'll say that right now.
Yeah, the CFP is usually the choice that people make.
Yeah, exactly. So I touched on me having a designation that no one knows about, the AFCC. I get some questions like that. For me, it was because I didn't actually have plans to become a financial planner like full time and have my own firm or anything like that. I think that's awesome. But I'm like, that was never my goal. My goal was always to do something as part of my business, but not my whole business, which is why I liked the idea of this program, the AFCC. It is way bigger in the States. It's very tiny in Canada, which is why no one's heard of it. But I run into, and you may run into this as well. You talk to people and they're like, I'm a money coach. And you're like, oh, so like, what are your credentials? Or like, where do you go to school? And they're like, no, just like started coaching people about money. What are your feelings about people that have this money coaching business practice and they don't have that kind of background or education in it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it does frighten me a little bit because, in my many years of being in the industry, I have come across it several times where people that, they would be in a completely different industry and they're just like, oh, I'm just thinking about doing this. And you're like, okay. But there's so many details behind it, right? So that's where it gets really complicated. And, if you start like exploring like tax situations and stuff like that, like an individual that's not formally trained would not be able to give adequate advice unless they did a lot of research on the side. But even then it would be really complicated. So it's very challenging. And I think for the person that's, thinking about doing that, like it's not necessarily bad that you're doing it, but it's always important to improve upon your skills, right? Because I mean, obviously you're doing it because you have a passion for it. So improving upon those skills by taking courses and then, further down the line through like getting like a designation is something that will help build that practice, right? And there's no reason why your business can't change along that path as well. So, if for someone that's maybe, that's, in that situation where they're thinking about doing it and they're not, they don't have, as the educational background yet, there's certain areas of finance where they can focus on with like cash flow management, that kind of
or
stuff.
like accountability. I've seen a lot of that, which is helpful. Or it's just one of those things where I had the idea of becoming a money coach before I had credentials, but I actually didn't offer any kind of services like that until I did get some because, well, I didn't want to give the wrong advice or information, even though I had been, self-studying for so many years. And I will say from my personal experience, I am glad I did that. I learned actually a ton from the program I did, and it did. And also now it's like, kind of like yourself, it's like, I've got this designation. There's a whole group of other people that have this designation. There's a conference that we all have to kind of go to because that's how you can kind of get all of your continuing education credits in like one weekend, which is really great. And also you're part of this community, so you can talk to each other about like your clients and just learn from each other and share resources, so I'm like, that's invaluable. Yeah. So I'm sure you feel the same way with like, now you're in this group of other CFPs that have this designation. You can kind of talk about your experiences and share all that. But it's just one of those things. So if you're listening and you're thinking of like working with someone, my personal opinion is make sure you understand their education, their credentials, their background, because I feel like I would never work with a personal trainer for my fitness if they didn't have any proper training. Yeah. Like, you don't want to mess up your health. So why would you trust someone that, oh no, I'm good with money, or I read a lot of books so I can help you too? I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't want that, but just something to be aware of, right? So that's just something like, even I've got a recommendations page on my website, and I have that very clearly. Like, here are some of my, recommendations. These are people I know. I think they're really highly esteemed, so I think they're great. But just do your own you need to do your own due diligence. Yeah. Like, don't just take someone's word for it. Make sure you fully understand where they're coming from, what their education is, what they kind of offer, and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
You're going to be paying this person money to help you. You want to make sure that they actually know what they're doing.
Yeah. And Canada is a bit of a weird market for finance, like financial planning and guidance.
Yeah.
Is that there's very low regulation behind the titles that are used.
There are.
Yeah,
you wouldn't believe some of these like titles I see is like money coach for sure. I see that's common, but some of them I'm like, money empowerment coach. I'm like, I'm not 100% I understand what that means. Like, that's something you made up. Like, I think maybe that's just about, making you more financially confident or something, but I don't know. That's just me. And I'm probably just like, I think because I did go through a program, now I'm just like, I don't understand the people that didn't go through some sort of education.
Yeah. And with the titles, the government's, in Ontario right now, they actually had to pass a bill to protect the titles financial planner and financial advisor.
Because there was this, I feel like in the news a few years ago, this story that was like, there's all these financial institutions that these people were calling themselves a financial advisor, but one was with an O, one was with an E. Yeah. You can trust one and not the other. And then, to this day, I'm like, I actually can't remember which one's the good one. And it's just like, so wait. And then also financial advisor is different than financial planner. Yeah. And it is kind of a mess. Like, how could someone keep all of this information straight?
It is very confusing. And that's why designations are so helpful.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll go down that route a little bit further. But in economics, it's essentially something called signaling. So the idea with signaling is that you have two parties, and there's, one party has more information than the other. So a signaling, so in this case, a designation indicates to the other party that person has, some baseline education or training behind it. So it is very helpful to have that designation because it shows someone that you're dealing with or someone that you want to deal with that, they've at least gone through these steps to gain this knowledge and education.
Absolutely. Exactly. Okay. So you were able to finish level 1 and you finished level 2 recently.
Yeah. I just finished the exam. So that one was 6 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It was quite something. And actually, I think the hardest part was the very uncomfortable chair that I was sitting in.
Isn't that the worst? Oh, you're like, or if you have to like go pee and you're like, but then I'll have less time for the exam.
Yeah. There's no sympathy for
Oh
bathrooms.
no. Oh gosh. So what was your experience like? And so now you're done. How does that feel?
Yeah. So, I mean, it feels great to be done.
Yeah.
It actually took over 2 months to get the results back.
What?
Yeah, it was crazy. So there's a point where like, you kind of like flip flop back and
You're
forth.
like, what if I failed?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, because the final exam is only part of it is multiple choice.
Okay.
And the majority of it is actually writing responses.
Oh.
So what I found doing like practice exams is that you could type in anything. And if it doesn't meet their specific guidelines, like it's not accepted. And, when you're doing multiple choice, I felt like it's easier to know if you did good or bad.
Yep.
But when you're doing written answer, you're like, meh.
It could be anything. I
Yeah.
hate those. I much prefer multiple choice or a true false situation. With the one like, please just write this like paragraph. I'm like, I can write about anything and that's good or bad. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's terrible.
So it was nice to be done. I was definitely happy the day that I received that email.
Good. I know before I hit record, we were looking at how many people in Canada have the CFP designation. And it's surprisingly not a lot because I think it is so rigorous. So I think a lot of people kind of fall off. So it is kind of something to be said when you have that designation. It's like, oh, well, it's not an easy one to just get.
No, it's not.
No.
Yeah.
And it took you in total how long from start to finish to get it?
So, I mean, excluding the, the CSC course.
Yeah.
Probably about, I would say about 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. It's a long time.
It is a long time.
How did you find, and you're also obviously working at the time to make a living. How did you find the time to actually squeeze into study?
Oh, it was so complicated.
Yeah.
So what I learned after doing the first exam, and a good piece of advice probably for everyone is actually condense all your notes.
Right.
So what I did was I went through all the old notes and I turned everything into point form. So it saved me a lot of time in the future. And I think my point form notes turned out to be like 200 pages or something.
Oh my God. So you can write a book on how to do the CFP.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just point form.
Oh my God.
So yeah. And I mean, it's helpful for the future too. So even like when you're done the program, having those notes, like you could just do like a word find and you'd be like, what qualifications do you need for this?
Yep.
So yeah, no, it was, I would definitely recommend that because for the CFP, there is no official textbook for the final course.
Really?
Yeah. So it's just based on like whatever you have.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Oh, I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. There's a whole industry behind the scenes that essentially, provide that course.
Right.
I didn't take it myself because I didn't want to pay more than the actual course itself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But, for someone that, may not feel comfortable doing self-study, like I'm fortunately able to do, taking one of those courses is a good idea.
Yeah, for sure. No, I actually had a friend, not for the CFP, but she's a genius because she did the CFP in like record time. Like it's crazy. She's based out of the state, so it is a bit different. But she was also then pursuing the CFA because she's a genius. Okay. And she's like, it's so arduous. I think she also wanted to get that done within a year, and she was able to do it because she's so smart. But she did because I think it is like a lot of self-study. But then she also did this other specific training intensive in New York or whatever to help her pass or whatever. And she said it was actually like so worth it. Yeah. But it depends. That's the tricky thing with lots of these things. There's a lot of self-study. I know like for the CP, like depending, there's courses that you can take in class, like through a college or something like that. And then some not. Like for what I did for the AFCC, it was all self-study. So they just mail you textbooks. It's old school. They give you notebooks and textbooks. Nothing's online, which I actually really liked. It kind of brought me back to like my university days, but it was all self-study and all they're like, you have 3 years. So make sure you get it done within 3 years. Otherwise you have to like pay again and start from scratch. And it was actually very difficult to give myself these deadlines and restrictions. And sometimes what I would do was you have to book your exam yourself. And even though I did it actually, like you can do the exam like in a college with a proctor and all that, or you could actually do it in your home in your computer, but you still have a proctor with this. There's a company called Proctor U. So there's someone looking at you doing the exam online for like 2 hours or whatever. It's so weird. And sometimes I would get in trouble like, excuse me, stop touching your pen, or sometimes I just like fidget a lot, or I'd talk to myself. They're like, no talking. And I'm like, I'm in my house, no talking. But sometimes what I do is I book my exam before I was ready for it to give me some motivation, be like, you better start studying because your exam is in a month. And then I just cram. But I'm probably the worst person when it comes to exams. Like I'm that person that writes the essay the night before or crams the night before. So somehow I passed. Yeah. So that's awesome that you were able to get that. What are your plans now? Now that you said, so it's not even done though. Like there's this, the thing is, it's not just about passing the exam. It's also about getting those hours in. You want to talk about that? The experience that you have to have too?
Yeah. So it's not even hours. It's actually years.
Sorry. It's years. So how do they calculate? For me, I'm like, it makes almost more sense to get the hours because then you're like, this is how many clients I've worked with in how many hours. Years, you're just like waiting. You're just ticking and you're waiting for that time to go by.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be years of full-time hours.
Oh, full-time. So you do technically have to do like 40 hours a week for like 3 years?
Yeah, they say 37.5, but I mean, that's
right.
Break.
Damn, that's a lot.
It is, yeah. So, I mean, I'm fortunate in that sense where I have been working in the field so long, so it's not an issue. But yeah, no, I'm stuck with the whole like bureaucracy right now because I've just been overwhelmed with projects and stuff like that right now. So I have to fill in a whole bunch of like forms that I have to get signed by prospective clients. Not prospective clients, but existing clients and stuff like that. And I'm kind of in the process of doing that right now. And then once that's done, then I need to submit it to the board and then they give me the final approval. Yeah.
Talking to you does not make me want to do the CFP anymore. I'll tell you that, Ryan, because I'm like, all of that does not really jive with my path. I just wanted the credentials. Maybe in the future, who knows what my life will be. But yeah, it just sounds like so much work. Yeah. But worth it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, I mean, I guess it depends on what your goals are. But what I can say is that going through the process, I have learned a lot of information.
Yeah.
I had, when I started this course, I had been in the financial industry for over 10 years, right? But going through these, 2-3 years of intense education, like I feel like I learned so much more and more details.
I know this is like a big question, but what were some of those things you're like, I didn't know this before taking this path?
Yeah. So, I mean, I found that before I was giving more general advice.
Right.
Well, now I could give more specific advice where you could be like, this is, how much money you need for retirement. Like you could determine that. So before you'd be like, oh, like RSPs, like, pensions, this is how they work. This is how, how it gets processed. Like you would give more general advice, but now you could give more concrete answers.
Yeah.
And also just like other random pieces of advice that you'll just be like in the meeting. And like, it's funny because like actually when I meet with people, it's just like, I have all these like little like ideas that just keep on flicking. This would be good for them. That would be good for them. So you always get like, other little ways to help, help their situation.
Yeah. No, that's key. That is key. Now, I guess, the other kind of question is when you are working with clients, like what can you help them with as a CFP? Pretty much everything?
Yeah, pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole, any kind of like personal financing, like personal finance planning.
Yeah. Besides selling, you cannot sell them products and you can't manage their portfolios of investments.
Yeah. So you have to be licensed to do that. Yeah. Which is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's also important just to talk about that too, because I know that confuses a lot of people.
Yeah. Lots of people, and even me in the past, have been confused by this. When you work with a fee-only planner, CFP, or someone with another credential, like no one can manage your investment, or like unless they have that specific license like you mentioned. And also you may not actually want them to. In my opinion, there's so many great routes to invest now. You may not need someone to do that for you.
Exactly, yeah.
Because a lot of the time, those people that can do that, I feel like they're still somehow connected to a financial institution or investment firm. So they have their kind of, ideas and biases. So
yeah, they absolutely do. Not discounting the recommendations.
No, yeah.
But yeah, they definitely do have like specific sets of products that they can offer, maybe like internal, reports and stuff like that kind of direct them towards certain areas. So that definitely is happening. Yeah. And I mean, we're fortunate enough to, have, new systems and companies and stuff that are offering like robo advising portfolios and like, self-directed trading accounts that are, basically free.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we're at a moment where it's never been easier to invest on your own.
Exactly.
So if someone, is willing to take the time and effort to go down that path, there's really no reason not to.
Yeah. And I know what lots of fee-only planners do is they're like, I cannot advise you on your investments, but what I can do is do an audit of what you're currently doing and answer any questions and kind of help you know what you're doing, which sounds like sometimes that's all you want. You're like, I just need someone to tell me if this is what I should be doing, but not like tell me specifically what products to buy.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you could be doing? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very often people are stuck in high fee
mutual funds. Yeah. No, we can say it.
We can say it. Okay.
Yeah. We don't have, I don't work
funds.
with high fee mutual fund companies. That is one of the things that I'm like, I get offered all the time. Like, can't do it. You know, I'm all about robo advisors and DIY investing. Can't do it. I can't.
Yeah. And you have to be careful of mutual fund portfolio funds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which are essentially mutual funds and mutual funds.
That's
with higher fees.
Gross.
Yeah.
No, ever. I feel like, especially if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know what's up. Don't do it. Don't buy these high fee mutual funds. They're not good, man. No. So what are your kind of next steps now?
Yeah. So, I mean, once I get this, get these educational or not educational, but the proof of employment, then I'm going to have the designation. And I'm going to take a big, long look at where I want to be come mid-October when all this is done.
Yeah.
I have some big presentations coming up at through the library system.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love the library system.
Yes.
They're great.
Yeah.
If anyone's not using it, please do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Right.
Yeah.
So many great free resources.
Oh, it's so incredible. And for finance too, like they actually, it's all based on which municipality you're listening from, but they offer free streaming services. I know with the Toronto Public Library system, they have template wills that you could actually get for free.
Yep.
And powers of attorney. Like it's just it's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. But right now, because you are trying to get those years of experience, you are taking on clients.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm also just doing guiding individuals out, and I'm also doing, a side project podcast when I
So tell me a little bit about where people can find you if they want to chat with you more about your financial planning services and also your podcast.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess you could find me from my website. So www.ffcoach.ca. That would be the one place, and my email, phone number, all that stuff's there.
Awesome.
Podcast is, I guess, available on all resources. You could probably better comment on that than me.
I will link it in the show notes. Don't you worry.
And it's called Simple Money Podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah. The idea is that I try to keep the episodes as short as possible. So that's the way that I do it.
Yeah, like bite sized.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm hoping to start the next series in October.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at helping individuals with disabilities.
Wow.
Focusing on tax credits and financial steps that that are available to them.
Awesome.
Which unfortunately aren't very well publicized.
Well, thank you so much for coming over and chatting with me. I think so many people listening will get a lot out of this, and we've definitely debunked some myths and informed some people. So,
well, thanks for having me.
And that was episode 205 with Matthew, the friendly financial coach. You can check him out at ffcoach.ca. Once again, that's ffcoach.ca if you want to learn more about him, his podcast that he mentioned, and also if you want to work with a CFP who is fee only, no bias, and just a generally amazing, awesome person. So, I mean, he's my personal recommendation because I know him and I trust him, and I think he's amazing, and he's really put in the work to become a very smart and credible financial planner. So just putting that out there. There you go. I have a few exciting things to share, as always, like I always do at the end of these episodes. So stick around. I just want to share a few words about this episode's sponsor, which you are going to want to listen to the full ad if you skip them, because there's a freebie at the end. Okay, just putting that out there as well. Okay. This episode of the Mo Money Podcast is supported by the Great Courses Plus. You've heard me say this before, the best time to start investing is today, and the same goes for investing in yourself. If you've always wanted to learn something, gain a new skill, or just get better at something, it's never too late, and today is the day to start doing it. Just take it from me. I started blogging 8 years ago to learn digital marketing, and now I run my own online business. And I'm still continuing my education all the time because it's never been easier to learn. That's why I'm really excited to share with you the Great Courses Plus. It's an online library with courses on thousands of topics. You want to learn about the stock market? There's a course for that. You want to learn how to paint with watercolors? There's a course for that. You want to get better at photography, which is something I'm actually trying to work on my downtime. Well, there's a course called Fundamentals of Photography that will teach you all about camera settings and how to take better photos, taught by an award-winning National Geographic photographer. If you want to get started and see what kinds of courses there are, the Great Courses Plus is offering all Mo Money podcast listeners 1 free month of unlimited access to their entire library. Just visit thegreatcoursesplus.com/momoney to get access. Once again, that's thegreatcoursesplus.com/momoney to get 1 free month. Okay, as I forgot to mention, because I'm like just getting back into the swing of things, you can check out the show notes for this episode, which is on my website, jessicamorehouse.com/205. Again, you can find show notes for every single episode out there that is published when you just go to jessicamorehouse.com/whatever the episode number is to find out more information, links of things that we talked about, all on my website. So make sure to check that out. As always, of course, subscribe to wherever you're listening. It's interesting. So when I calculated actually how many downloads this podcast has gotten, I also had to basically look at all the different locations or destinations, as they're called, where people listen. So you may be interested to know. YouTube, 93,000 downloads from YouTube. Interesting. Lots of people like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, possibly yourself right now. SoundCloud got about 36,000. Spotify, 41,000. I feel like Spotify is not the cool place to listen to podcasts at the minute. I think it will be in the future, but still the main kind of destination where people listen to podcasts, and I'm guilty of this too, is iTunes or the Apple Podcast app. Isn't that interesting? So that is how most people listen to podcasts. So says my stats. So thought that was interesting. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode, because really appreciate that. Now I've got a bunch of cool things coming up. Now, first off, I do want to say, if you want to be the first to know of these things or just not miss it, because sometimes I don't share when I'm doing an event or when I'm launching something on the podcast, because guess what? I pre-record these things, right? I'm busy. I have to batch these things. And so sometimes if I'm doing an event next week, I just can't do it. So make sure to go onto my email list, jessicamorehouse.com/subscribe. Also, when you do that, when you get onto my email list, you can get free access to my entire resource library. And so what that means is I have a free course. I have a bunch of free spreadsheets and worksheets and guides, freebies galore. If you want to make this, last part of 2019, the year that you get your shiza together, then you're going to want to, start by checking out this free resource library, because it's free. So what's stopping you, right? I also want to remind you, if you're new to the show, I have an investing course. So I get so many messages from people asking, hey, I want to learn more about investing, or I want to get started with investing. What do I do? And I'm like, well, I made a course for that, because I get those questions all the time. And also there's a lot to know. And when you kind of put it out there, hey, I want help with investing, a lot of people want to just sell you mutual funds or something like that. And that's just not what you're asking for, right? You want to learn how to be a savvy investor. So I have a course called Investing Foundations for Canadians. So this is specific to Canadians. However, a lot of I have had tons of Americans who have taken the course, and it is very applicable. The only difference is obviously I will talk about RRSPs, not 401ks. So that's the big difference. But if you want to learn everything that you kind of need to know in terms of just the crux of it, the really important things about investing, you'll want to take this course. So many people, there's been so many great, reviews and testimonials from past students saying this changed everything for me. If you want to start investing, if you want to know what the deal is with robo-advisors and how they work, if you want to know what the hell a benchmark means, if you want to know how stocks work and bonds work and what the hell is a GIC, and should you invest using a TFSA or an RRSP, what is an RESP, the list goes on and on. I address all of that in this course. So if you want to get started with it, do it right now. Just go to jessicamorehouse.com/investing foundations. I will include a link in the show notes as well. But if you want to get started with investing, this is the course to help you get there. So yeah, that's right. And so, as I mentioned, I have a bunch of events coming up. I'm still firming some of them up. I will have one of my Millennial Money meetups happening in Toronto in November. I am just firming up the date on that so you can get excited. And I will, I let people on my email list know about that. So make sure to get onto my email list. I will be heading to Ottawa actually in November as well for an event at a university. However, I hope that maybe I can also do one of my meetups. That is pending. I may not be able to do it. It is pending, but hopefully I will be able to do that. And maybe I'll even be crazy and do a little meetup in Vancouver when I go back home for the holidays in December. Maybe I will be crazy and do that. Let me know if you definitely want me to do an event in Ottawa. If you definitely want me to do an event in Vancouver, yeah, let me know. Email me, jessica@jessicamorehouse.com, or tweet me or Insta DM me. You know, do all of the above. I would really appreciate it. All right, that is it for me. I've been rambling for a while. I think I'm just like really excited to talk to you again. You know, I mean, I spend a lot of time alone. I'm alone right now. Obviously, I'm just talking to myself. I'm talking to you, but you know what I mean? So anyways, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm going to have so many great episodes to share with you coming up. Make sure to subscribe. I will see you back here next Wednesday. Thank you. See ya next week.